Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Cronin, just statewide news service and jbiztechphilly.com.
Well, Rabbi, we have one of the foremost elected officials in the capital region with us today. And even though he's a Republican in the Assembly, his name's Jim Tedisco, and he's been in the legislature since 1983.
You got it, 34 years.
Wow.
You know, and
I was tall when I got to the Assembly.
So
Now
was I.
They shrunk me down.
But I started when your predecessor, Clark Wemple,
That's right.
was at the Assembly. So
I was on the
you,
city council then. when
I
he was
remember you when you first got elected, and I came over to congratulate you, and you were like, "Who's
Are
this?"
you one of the most
Fisher?
senior members of the Assembly now?
there. Of 150 members, believe it or not, I'm about fourth or fifth in seniority.
Oh, you are.
Yeah. You know, when Clark Wemple was there, he was there for 17 years.
Right.
And I said, wow, how can anybody do
And
this?
you've doubled
That's
that.
Double job. I'm there for 34 years. I've doubled it already. But of course, I started when I was 15, Rabbi. So
Yeah,
Of
right,
course,
there you
of
go, me
course.
too. We're both 29.
That's
even though
it.
The arithmetic doesn't add up, but it's good.
But you were there, so you have had such a career in the Assembly. It's just really amazing because you were the Republican leader in the Assembly.
yeah, I've had several jobs.
Right, you know, and you did fine under there. I think you gained some membership over.
Gained some membership, got a lot of notoriety for our ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, notoriety you don't want to say because that
Well,
comes from the word notorious.
positive notorious
So,
notoriety.
You know, so you don't want to use notoriety.
It was pretty positive.
But you got some
Identification.
recognition. You
Yeah,
got
recognition.
recognition.
Do you know, I, in my conference, carried the first property tax bill that eventually we had to bring the speaker in his majority kicking and screaming to pass because they fight for rent control quite a bit in New York City, and I
Right.
understand that. But we have a tax problem, property tax problem in
Upstate.
upstate New York. And I had to really I'd have to say, in the face of the speaker with my conference, and we put a lot of pressure on from the bully pulpit
Right,
in
but who
the
was the
public.
speaker at the time?
Speaker Silver, when we passed that bill for property tax cap. Yeah.
Okay, but
And
so that had to be, okay, so
And
that
I was the
later
minority
on. It
leader at
wasn't-
that time.
It wasn't early on, okay.
Yeah, no.
Taking things up to the current events, you're not the current Assembly minority
Leader.
speaker.
I'm the minority
leader.
whip now. That's my
Right.
position.
He whips them.
Yeah,
He whips
you
them
whip
into
I have to
shape.
keep all these
Would
guys
you want,
in.
I mean, would you get it back? I mean, there is talk that the Republicans aren't as vocal as, you know, America's a two-party system. That's the way we work.
He listens to Fred Dicker, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is. I looked at my civil courses in grammar school too. I mean, it's important that,
Well,
that you know, it's an important job. You say you're saying the minority, but say, well, you're not important, but it really isn't important. Keeps everybody honest and keeps the
Loyal opposition.
Extremely important. Who would ever think I could have gotten Proposition 2 passed this year from
What
a
is
minority position?
So explain that.
Well, we could talk about that. And that is, it took a 4-year process, and it's changing the Constitution of New York State. And that's a serious matter when you're going to change the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the right thing to do. And we had to pass this piece of legislation in 2 successive legislative bodies. In other words, we had to have one body pass it, and then we had to have an election, and we had to have another body
Well,
pass
what
it.
is it?
It was on the ballot this year. There were 3 propositions that people voted on.
Right.
And all election, I talked about my record, and I said, go out and vote for your local and state and federal elect, but turn over your ballot. Because on the back of the ballot this year were 3 questions. One related to education as it relates to computers, and we had another one which related to funding for something else. But this related...
Districting.
Redistricting, yeah, special
And what were
redistricting.
you involved
Proposition 2...
with? Which is?
said we were going to fulfill the mandate in the Constitution put in there by our founding fathers that said you had to have the bills on your desk for 3 full days. Now, they were very wise, Rabbi and Mark. Why would they want us to have the bills on our desk for 3
To
days?
review it.
So we could be real, because we are representatives. But what they were not, and nobody could be wise enough hundreds of years ago to know, we'd have the social media, we'd have computers, we'd have a phone here that could be acted just like in computer, and we could save millions of dollars, first of all, in the ink, in the paper, in the delivery. All this ink and all this paper, guess where it went? Into the landfills. So you've got ink-filled paper going into the landfill. Tons of it, reams of it, at over $50 million a year. And
Really?
it
Printing.
affect the environment. So what this proposition said to the public, the question was this: would you want to fulfill this mandate to have the bill on the legislator's desk digitally with an opportunity for legislators
You
to
could see it all on a tablet.
press a button,
Right.
the bill comes up. If I want to debate a section of the bill, if I want a memo in support or of opposition, I can bring it right up on a computer, an iPad, right on my desk. So throngs of paper, millions of dollars is being saved right now.
Excellent.
I got that bill passed twice. If you go to my website and look at Going Digital, Jim Tedisco,
Yeah.
you'll see me debating Denny Farrell through piles of paper to make the point on the floor, because sometimes a vision
Why
or a
was
photo.
anybody against
But you also
that
had a
over
news
there?
conference where you stood on these papers too.
Yep, I stood on top of a big bin of papers,
Right.
and you know what was the overriding factor? It was still wrapped in twine. All of the bills were not even opened.
Right.
This was on the 10 budget bills. You see, we passed not only 10 budget bills in the Assembly, we passed 10 budget bills in the Senate's version, and the governor gives us 10 budget bills of his own. All those 30 budget bills come to our desk. When we come to an agreement, there's 10 more budget bills, thousands of pages just for those 10 budget bills. Can you guess how many bills come across our desk in 1 year?
I don't know.
17,000
Yeah.
bills. Can you imagine the reams of paper, the trees that are taken down? Now, in many instances, you have to reforestate. You have to take down trees, but you don't have to do it by filling paper with ink and
Yeah,
putting it in
sure.
landfill. You can, furniture is made with the lumber, houses are made with lumber. There's a lot of paper cups and paper plates. We don't need all that ink-filled
You
stuff
know,
going in
It's
landfills.
such a good idea. What was the debate about? What was the opposition?
Well,
Was it
they have,
tradition?
they have a tendency to drag their feet, and unfortunately, I feel like this. I feel as long as individuals who are working as a team don't care who gets the credit, you can achieve unbelievable accomplishments. Unfortunately, some of my colleagues think, in a political sense, if it's not my idea, it's not a good idea. That's not a good public servant.
Did you have your
And that's
na-
taken place.
Was your name on the bill all the way through, or did you have to give the bill up for a majority member
Well,
to
I
be
had
on
my
the
own
bill?
separate bill, and so eventually I just got on Mrs. Galeff's bill. And
Okay.
see, the thing is, you
So
can,
it passed the Sandy Galiff's
oh yeah,
bill.
Sandy Galeff's
Okay.
bill, and I believe I was on the bill, but I've passed several bills.
No, but I know that it was your idea. You made a point of telling everyone it was your idea, and
Well-
I understand that. And she didn't climb up on a
No.
bin of paper, so
That-
you know.
This is the point I'm trying to make. A lot of legislators carry bills, but they don't work to market the bill, to get it onto the floor, to get it passed.
Right.
You can have the greatest idea in the world as a public servant, but if you don't work to get it passed on the floor, what good does it do your
Yeah.
constituents?
Right.
You know, our job is to provide the best level of services at the lowest cost to our constituents, and also to be there to help them remove the obstacles before them, so all of us can be everything we can be with the God-given talent we've been given.
You know, I'd like to talk another thing that just recently passed, and that is the casinos, and therefore, I don't know if you want to give you a mazel congratulations or not. I don't know how you feel. That's why I'm going to ask you
Well-
about having Governor Cuomo picking is it
Your
your
area,
area?
your area,
Your area.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Your area has got the casinos. In a lot of areas, we had a lot of elected officials here begging, really pushing for it, and they didn't get it, and you won. I don't know if you feel it's a winner or it's.
Well-
I mean, there's two sides of every coin.
The verdict is still out on that, Rob Valley, and we'll have to wait to see if you would give me congratulations or condolences for having it
Right.
in my district. Because there's pros and there's cons to these types
Well,
of
that's
things.
fine. I want to know how
One
you
of the
feel about
major
it.
concerns I have, and I'm happy we may be able to create jobs, might be 1,000 to 1,200 jobs. It might be bring people to visit restaurants and stay at hotels in our community. But one thing I'm concerned about, a half mile from this casino is Union College in Schenectady. Now, I was a student one time. I graduated from Union College. I know there's no more addictive type of person than a college
Really?
type of person.
Interesting.
I'd hate to see them go over there and have their family see their tuition money go for gambling for a casino half a mile away. I'm a little bit concerned that some mother and father might say, Union College, it's a nice academic school, a great academic school, and by the way, we're the national champions in hockey. You know,
Yeah, right.
I played basketball there. You
Yeah,
know that.
right, right.
But when people come up to you and say, "Don't you hold basketball records?" I say, "No, I was a hockey player because that's a championship." But it brings crime. It brings things like prostitution. Traffic problems have to be dealt. Now, having said that, It could work out greatly. It could spin up the economy. We could mitigate some of those negative things, and we're hopeful that it's positive.
When the governor did his victory lap and he came to Proctor's to say how wonderful this is, were you invited to be at Proctor's with him?
Unfortunately, I was invited 9:30 that morning for a 10 o'clock press conference with the governor. And I think that tells you something about
doesn't it?
the partisanship of what's going on with that. But,
So they could say they invited, but I bet you Angelo Santa Barbara and Phil Steck got a warning, a longer bit of warning.
Senator Fahey was there. But,
Assemblywoman.
Assemblyman Fahey,
Fahey,
excuse
yeah.
me. But Senator Farley and I got invited kind of late.
Oh, wow.
And
Senator Farley, too.
Yeah. But, hey.
And you couldn't make it because you had other things on your calendar?
Well, I don't have an airplane, and plus I didn't get into the office till about 10:30.
Oh.
And then we looked at the site, and they invited us by email,
Well, you got to have it rolled to your phone and get the emails on your phone.
Yeah.
Like I do.
But that's okay. I've seen the governor before, and I've heard him before.
It's a newest.
Well, I'm just wondering, because you weren't enthusiastically supportive of the casino, maybe that's why they didn't want sort of a semi-naysayer to
I don't
be.
think I was ever not enthusiastic.
No,
I voted to allow it to go on the ballot.
Right,
So I did allow gambling to go on the ballot
Yeah.
to let the constituents decide. And it probably was projected to go at the Racino in Saratoga. But the founding fathers there, the mayor and their government body, said they didn't want it.
Right.
So after that happened, it was open season, and that's a part of why Schenectady and Rensselaer were really bidding for it, and Cooperstown, a lot of other...
House Cavern?
House Cavern, excuse me, was one of the ones bidding for it. And but I don't think that Racino is going to do too good anymore in Saratoga County now because...
Well, they have to see, people are also saying, how much can you spread out the money to?
Well, that's the thing.
Well,
And
you
the other
know,
part of this is that a lot of the ones are closing down now, a lot of these casinos.
You know what I look at it is, at least they're redeveloping that Alco site,
That's a good point.
and it's going to be a nice bay, okay? And if it doesn't work and it closes, you got a nicer empty spot than you do now with the Alco locomotive plant. So you're going to have a nicer empty
Well,
spot,
we'll see.
which then someone else might want to go in there and say, okay, I'll take it over, not as a casino, but as a hotel, as a resort, as
Retail,
something else.
something like that.
And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that they could be repurposed for something, but at least you're getting out of that blue collar nitty gritty, where you don't even want to go near the place.
And two things about what you say, because you're absolutely right. This is a brownfield.
Yes.
There's not a lot of good stuff in the soil there because that was Alco. They made the parts and the weapons for the war, and they were known for that. And now that brownfield is all going to be cleaned up.
Right.
So that's going to be very protective of the water and
So if
everything
for
else.
nothing else,
That's a good thing.
You know.
And also, there are going to be housing, rental properties there, condominiums there. And like you say, if it doesn't work out, maybe you could put retail in there, office space or something. But
it
it's-
looks like a beautiful harbor from the pictures that
They're
they
going
show.
to allow the boats to come
You
in
know.
and... Because
You're ready to go,
I was
Mark?
excited just for the picture of it, rather than the casino itself, but just for what the diagram
Should be
looked
nice.
like.
Looks
All right,
very
so
nice.
hopefully
But
you
my,
like your
my
city.
personal pick was Rensselaer, and because I'm a Hard Rock Cafe fan, so
Well,
I wanted to
everybody thought Hard Rock, you got it made, but it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
You know.
Do you think it was political? These
You know,
decisions?
everything is political
No,
in there. Now, to what extent it was political, and, I got to laugh a little bit when they asked the governor. He said, well, I didn't know who was going to get picked. I left it up to, listen, this governor doesn't leave any decision up to anybody that he's capable of controlling. I mean, right now, we used to have member items over there where
Right.
we do a lot of good programs. Unfortunately, people did some bad things with those member items, mostly downstate. They stole some money, so they wiped out some of the good member items that we used to give to veterans and to little leagues
Parks,
and things,
yeah.
parks. But now the governor controls millions upon billions of dollars. He's got one huge member item.
Well,
and he
it's-
controls all of that.
and
He
they
says
call it
there's
something else. They don't call it a member, but they call it something
economic
else.
development regions, they call
Well,
it.
no, because I went down to Lower Manhattan, and there was this new business that was opening up, and they said, Shelley Silver got us this money for this space here. It was
Well-
like a $20,000, I don't want to say member item, but if it was a member item, if they were still around, that would what it would have been.
What that is money that was allocated in the past. It is still member items, but it's money that was allocated in the past and was in a pool and was already there, and they can only use it for that now unless they change the structure of that. But there's no new member items. There's just money that was left over that really never got allocated. I
Right.
think that's a part of it.
You think that's what it was?
I think
You
that's what it is.
Okay, so there's still money that the assembly can allocate
From the past.
from the past?
It'll be running out shortly, I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
Unless, well, he had a lot of money, I think, stored up, but
Well,
you're
you know,
right. There's money.
Assemblyman Dat, there's a new session coming up. What are hot issues, can you tell us, that are going to be debated in the Assembly this year?
Well, of course, the number one hottest issue has to be what to do with $5 billion of surplus.
Well,
Is that a bad, I should have that problem.
Well, not
one of the
just
best
that,
problems
but
to have.
You have all the money you're saving from not printing all those bills and stuff.
That's more money.
So you
but this
have
is-
more money.
That's beyond that. And I think there's some good ideas. The infrastructure is one idea. Look, our roads and bridges are in disrepair. We need to really invest in those roads and bridges. The problem with the roads and bridges, though, is that we don't spend as we go. I think we have over 60 to 70 billion dollars in borrowing right now in the state of New York. And the service fee on that is, I think, $7 to $8 billion a year. So that's just the service fee plus the borrowing. We don't need to borrow.
Isn't it less than what it was when we had these transportation bond issues and we had these other?
Well, we're still paying those. Those are the things that
That
are.
was 30 years ago. We should be.
In
I
these-
think I think those bond issues have expired.
Well, I think there's. We had one not too long ago, which was an environmental bond. issue.
Environmental, but
Yeah.
we just had infrastructure, so your transportation bond issue is what it would fall under.
Yeah.
And I remember Mario Cuomo was big on these bond issues.
Yeah.
So.
And he's been out for how many years? 12 years
Yeah.
with Pataki and a couple of years with some other
Right.
governors.
So it's 20 years since he's out. 94 he was out, so
Right.
20 years that he's been out.
But
so.
a part of this transportation problem is what we call the locked box.
Yeah,
We have the highest gasoline, even though it's low right now,
Right.
have highest gasoline taxes of any state in the nation.
Right.
We have registration fees,
right.
license fees. Every time you buy a tire in New York State, I don't know if you know this,
Yeah.
you pay $2.50,
To
which is
dispose.
supposed to go in the locked box for
I
transportation.
do know, I just bought 4 tires
All
and
right.
and they
there's
said, I said,
$10.
what is this? What are you
Yeah.
charging me?
$2.50. But somebody keeps getting the key to that locked box. And instead of spending it all on roads and bridges,
Which it should go.
it's like the lottery. Remember they said the lottery money,
Goes to
for
education.
where it goes into general fund, then it just takes a piece out that was in there, and it doesn't really go for property tax abatement, other than the cap we have. And a lot of it doesn't go to education, because we have a gap right now. You remember about 5 or 6 years ago, they cut education extremely, because they said we can't afford it, and we've never caught up since then. So we're
That
trying
gap
to get to...
elimination.
That's right.
What is it called? Gap elimination, GE
Yeah,
something.
G-
Okay,
GEP.
but there's so there's
And we'd like to fill that gap
Right.
and fund education, get back to where we were in terms of funding, not
Are you-
overly funded.
Are you in
fun-
agreement that it's not just money that is needed to correct the education problem?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But we can't forget about the fact that we do have to, anytime you do a survey with the public, they don't mind spending the billions of dollars we do on it, as long as the test scores are going up and people are graduating at an appropriate rate. And we're not getting that right now. And partially, that's what that Common Core was all about.
So let me ask you, do you think some of the surplus should go for bulletproof glass or police cars?
Oh, absolutely. I think a portion of it, just a small portion.
Like how much?
I'd say right now we could put $5 million, let's say. Remember, this is $5 billion that we have. $5 million would be...
How many cars could $5 million?
Well, let's think about it. $10,000 per car.
Yeah.
I don't know what the math is.
Okay.
But that's quite a few to
That's quite a
start
few
with.
cars, okay.
And the concept of this is to phase it in over a period of time. Because, as I said earlier...
Right, New York City needs it more than maybe an upstate
Well, that's probably where we'd start,
county.
New York City, and then the state police, and then individual police sectors, because we provide Kevlar vests for them. I think when they're sitting in the car, when they're driving in the car, I get, policemen have called me up and say, look, Jim, in Hamilton Hill and other Arbor Hill, these are drug areas. These people have weapons. When I'm in those areas and they drive up to me and I look across them and I see these two guys sitting in a car, I put my hand on my weapon because I'm not sure they're going to reach across and shoot right across into my vehicle. And a lot of them have said that it makes imminent sense to have this bulletproof in the vehicle. And if presidents can have it, I mean, there's no question in my mind that if they'd have a fighting chance if these two cops had that bulletproof
That's the two policemen were killed in New York
Assassinated.
City, assassinated, all right.
Now, the issue of the atmosphere is a separate thing. There's people spinning up hatred and things of that nature, using racism. And what concerns me is they're not looking at the facts. The facts don't seem to matter anymore. If there is a racial component to it, that policeman should be off the job. He doesn't belong or she doesn't belong being a policeman. But you have to look at the facts. You have to look at the person committing the crime, what the level of the crime was. You have to go through the court system. But it seems like they don't want to go through that whole process now.
Right.
They just want to yell out racism, and that fills the flames up. People get excited, and this fellow said, well, I'm going to put wings on pigs. I'm going to kill 2 policemen for every one of the individuals that they're killing. Now, that's not an appropriate thing.
that wasn't like when pigs fly? Wings on pigs? When
Well,
pigs
he
fly?
said, I'm going to put wings on pigs.
because pigs is a derogatory thing for cops?
For cops, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I thought it was
He
when
put
pigs-
that actually on his
Sorry,
website.
I shouldn't have. Okay.
Put that on his
So-
website.
I mean, it really is, like I say, I mean, there's things to do in reality, like you're saying, of putting bulletproof windows. And you're right, it's the other time is where the cause of all this rhetoric goes on, and you get changed down to, and you say in Yiddish, a meshuggah or a nut, will take it to heart. Most people obviously don't, thank God, or we'd have a whole riots here.
Right.
But I mean, it takes one nut to hear this rhetoric and get all upset and do something about it. So I don't know where the cause is, and maybe it's the media that has to, or like you say, if the truth is, it's just, even for example, they always say black on black crime is worse. So who cares who kills you, pal, whether you're right or wrong. Let's get rid of crime altogether, and there's no, cry out for, let's calm it down the streets altogether and lower the crime.
Yeah, we're a society of laws. Now, if somebody breaks the law and he or she has to be arrested, if they won't let you arrest them, you can't say, okay, this person won't let me arrest them. I'm a cop. I got to go away. They've broken the law. Now, this fellow Gardner, I really feel bad for anybody who loses his life. The man was over 300 pounds. He was not letting people arrest him. And you could say to him, okay, it wasn't that bad, but he was doing it over and over, selling these things called Lucy's.
Mm-hmm.
And all the people who own businesses there were upset at him, saying, listen, this is against the law. I can't sell Lucy's in my business. I have to sell a full pack of cigarettes. And this guy's competing against us out in front of... And so they did, I guess, what they had to do. I don't think he died from strangulation because he might have pulled him down in 5 seconds around his throat, but I think he died from stress, maybe a heart attack.
Yeah, but he kept saying, I can't breathe, so they should have gotten oxygen on him as opposed to keep...
If you say you can't breathe, that means you can breathe. Because the specialists say if you can speak, you are breathing.
Okay.
So it didn't make sense to say, now, he was being pressured and he was being stressed, but he was breathing.
Let me, just because we're sort of running out of time.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that you have another passion in the assembly, and
Oh,
that's
yes.
for pets.
Animal advocacy.
You are the pet man.
Well-
and it's interesting because you have this hard side to you, but you also have a softer side. And it comes out every year because you have this Animal Advocacy Day
Right.
where people bring their pets into the Legislative Office building, and they have this pet awareness
Yeah, we have
day.
legislation we lobby for.
And then you have a recent bill that, I don't know if you were the sponsor, but it was where you can't tattoo or pierce
Yeah.
your dogs and cats.
Animals, yeah.
Animals, all animals.
Well, I don't
Okay.
mind people who go tattoo themselves, but animals can't make a decision on that.
But that's like branding, isn't it? Like you can't brand?
No, because they're not round up like cows.
But you can still do it with cows? You can still brand
You
cows?
can brand cows because that's identification
Okay.
in case of security of stealing.
But they were doing that
and
with
also,
the ears on the dogs. They would, for identification, they would put
that
in-
is legal under this bill.
Okay.
That's not illegal under this bill. But an all-out tattoo and just piercing people for the sake of putting jewelry into them, the dog doesn't have a choice in that. I don't mind if
Was
you...
that your bill? Did
I
you
supported that bill,
You
yeah.
supported it. You didn't sponsor it?
I was a sponsor on that bill, yeah.
No, but it wasn't your idea to
No, no,
come
no.
up and develop it?
No.
Okay.
I
So-
sponsor several bills that are not my idea, but I have my own bills also.
Okay, so with this Animal Advocacy Day, I mean, this has really grown to be very popular. And I was just wondering if maybe you could talk about the pets and safety, pet safety a little bit.
The most important bill we have right now is a statewide registry bill for animal abusers, those convicted of Buster's Law, which you know I passed several years ago, to be one of the first states in the nation to have an animal cruelty felony law. Now, why did I do that? And why is it important to have Animal Advocacy Day? Because we made history 4 years ago. It was the first Animal Advocacy Day in the history of New York. It's grown unbelievably. We have 700 to 800 people who come. We have sponsors on both sides. And you know why it's a great issue? Because we have Democrats and Republicans who not only bring their animal in on animal advocacy, they want to show their cat or their dog, but they're working together on the same bills.
Right.
This is something we agree upon. It's nonpartisan, and that's one of the.
You know,
one of the
And that's
great
what
things.
and that's what you strive to achieve.
Nonpartisanship, yes.
Right.
And why is it important? Because we have to represent all voices as representatives. The smallest of voices, the most powerful of voices, and guess what?
The barks and the meows too.
Those who have no voices, people who can talk to us in various ways. And when you mention that, this is one of the important things about animals. We have animals now, service animals. We just talked about one on our website today. It can identify if a child's going to have an epileptic seizure.
Really?
It can
Yeah,
identify
wow. I
if
never
a child
heard
who
of
has diabetes is low on insulin. I had a
Right.
mother who called me and said, twice in the middle of the night, $20,000 this dog cost, trained to identify if your child is low on insulin and is going to go into insulin shot. Saved its child's
That's
life
incredible. I never heard of such
Twice.
a thing.
In the statewide registry would put the names of those who abuse animals and who are convicted. They would never be able to own a pet again unless they had psychological evaluation and treatment. Because this is a bridge crime. That's the other part of it. People say, why are you working on such an issue like this? Well, it's not the only issue I work on, but Son of Sam, Ted Bundy, Dahmer, all of the serial murderers, the Taliban kids, the FBI shows they all had a history of abusing animals before they went on to be serial murderers.
You know, I
So this
just
is an
wanted, you know,
important
we're on the Jewish View, so I want to put in a commercial for Judaism. So you're right on target, and a lot of people don't know this, but there's 613 commandments, and one of them in the Hebrew is called Sar Balichaim, painting or abusing animals. So it is it is very important, and it's, you know, what kind of character person abuses an animal, but you just, like you say, one thing leads to another. Something's terribly wrong with some human being that's going to abuse an animal, and it is one of the commandments in the Torah.
Not to
That's
abuse
why
Not to abuse
that's
an
why
animal.
we need one bill for psychological evaluation and treatment mandate. There's a woman and several hoarders like this had 130 cats in her house. Had 30 of them in a freezer, dead
Coach
already.
Was
Sugar,
this
she's
in
nuts.
Perth or Galway or what was this?
It was out
in
towards
Fulton County.
Gloversville. I think.
Gloversville, yeah, it's Fulton County.
And they were just convicted.
Right.
But it's not only an animal cruelty thing, it's the germs and the disease in the neighborhood that can affect other people in their lives. So this is a public health situation.
Right.
Yeah, right.
But the other thing about animals, they give you unconditional love.
They do.
I have dog, 2 cats, and they're just great
And you know what
partners.
Harry Truman said? If you want a friend in politics, get a dog.
So that's why they all have dogs in the
That's why they got
it.
the dogs. And,
All
you know,
right.
I just got to tell you, it's really very heartwarming when I go to that Animal Advocacy Day and I see, you know, even the dogs that lost their limbs, and they're there, even the one that was
They're the
on-
railroad dogs.
The railroad dogs.
Yeah,
and,
Hudson.
And other dogs and other animals that are there. And you had the socialite up in Saratoga.
Michelle Riggy.
Michelle Riggy.
She adopted a dog that was, and we're trying to ban
But
this.
she had a Louis Vuitton bag that she put the dog in,
Yeah.
and she's going around with this dog in a bag. And I'm just like,
And she's got actually 46 dogs
Rush
in her house.
I hope
She does
takes
well.
care
She
of them.
takes good care of them.
I would like to be adopted by
Yeah.
her. That's how good they're. But she had a dog that was devocalized because it was breeding, and you know what that is? They're barking too much, so they cut the throat of the dog. And we're trying to ban that. Because if you can't accept a dog that's barking, give it to somebody else.
Right.
Don't cut their throat. So, because a dog should be able to speak to us just like anybody else.
You
You
got
know,
it.
we're out of time,
Okay.
Mark, but you know, you've been on the Jewish View many times, and you know, you're good. Talk about a voice. You are the voice for the public, for the people, and even the minority, but you speak up. So you have to speak up, I guess, a little louder for everybody. But you're doing a great job, and you have for so many years, and just keep up the good work
We
and
will
do it
do it.
with good health.
Much success.
And I thank you for inviting us, and I want to wish you the greatest on this. When we're doing this, they should know this. This is the last day of Hanukkah, so I hope you had a blessed Hanukkah season, and this is the last night of Hanukkah, and best
And
wishes to
Happy
you.
New
Andy.
Year and all
And
that.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.